Hello and welcome. In this lectures, we are going to talk about more in uh, details what is JIT and their utilization. So more or less all these are the theoretical lectures and but we understand end to end the purpose of a JIT and why JIT and so on and so forth. So first thing first we have to understand what is the version control system. The version control system VCS is a software that helps software developer to work together and maintain a complete history of their work. Allow developers to work seamlessly, does not allow overwriting each other's changes. Maintain a history of every version. Types of a VSS we have centralized version control system, CVS, or distributed decentralized version control system, DVCS. So, in brief history of a version control system, the first generations once we started like in it was there in single file and working there is no networking concept and so and so forth. In second generations we started multi files and centralized the, CVS, BSS, SVN, and so forth come into the picture in second generations. Now we are there in third generations where we have a chain set distributed and JIT, you know, and Bitkeeper and so forth tools are all working, you know. So we are going to talk, in third generations and the tools is about JIT here. So JIT basic concept, why it's required and all. Yeah, JIT is a distributed revision control and source code management system with an emphasis of speed. Yeah, JIT was initially designed and developed by Linus Torvalds for a Linux kernel development. I'm sorry for wrong pronunciations of that in name. Git is a free software distributed under the terms of the GNU General Public License version 2. And you talk about now in more in JIT. So JIT by that created by Linus Torvalds, who also created Linux. You know, so prompted by Linux Bitkeeper separation, started in 2005, written in Perl C, runs on Linux, OS X and Windows and many other operating systems. Design goals speed, that is one of the main things. Simplicity, a storage branch, merge support, distributed and scales well for large projects. We'll compare with centralized VSS and distributed VCS. If you talk about centralized VCS, one central repository must be capable for connecting to repo, need to solve issue with a group members, making different changes on the same file. While, however, if you talk about that in other size in distributed VCS, then everyone has a working repo, faster connectionless, still need to resolve issue, but it is not an argument against DVCS. So what we are talking about, everyone has a working repo. That means let's say we have had two developer A and developer B. So if I clone the repository, that means I have an entire source code into my local PC. I can do whatever I want. There's no internet connectivity is required, So I can work offline and once that is work is done, I'll test it and everything. Then I can connect the internet and push the code into that, our respective repository, like in branches like master or like in a epic and so forth branch. Yeah, but still, if something is required, let's say I'm working in same file and some other developer is also working in same file. Of course, those who are going to do that in checking first other persons, they have to pull it again and then merge the code and again push it back to that in respective branches. So, a distributed version control system advantage, the different topology, centralized, hierarchical, distributed, and so forth. And that is a more effective is there, which is backup are easy because each clone is a full backup. Yeah, so if I'll take a backup as an individual, or I can clone as a, like, that repository into the my system, then I'll have that in clone of that repository, and I'll be able to clone it out as a master, and that will be, you can check it out into that in check in or check out into that in a respective repository whatever you have into Bitbucket. So advantage of a Git, it's a free and open source. GPL open source license is required. Yeah, fast and a small implicit backup. It's work on security as a SHA-1 model. No need for powerful hardware we can install into that. And it's a very lightweight. DVCS terminology, we are going to use that in like local repository. So local repository is nothing but whatever you have cloned it into that in your local PC. Yeah, working directory and a staging area or index. So working directory is nothing but where we are working at the moment. Like let's say C clone working directory. Yeah, and a staging is nothing but again into that in local, and where we'll use to do that in doing that in any file changes, then just we are committing it out locally. Or indexes, so indexes, every file have their index and it will maintain it. So by that in add command will perform it, but once you'll do that in a push, which is not a working stage or index, it's like a remote repository. Blobs, tree, commits, branch tags, clone, pull, push, ahead, and revisions in URL. These are the terminology you'll use that in a upcoming sessions. So basic workflow of a Git. Step number one, you modify your files from the working directory or you are adding it. Yeah. Step two, you add this file to the staging area. Step three, you know you perform commit operations that move the files from the staging area. After push operations, it stores the changes permanently to the Git repository. The working directory is staging area, and once it's done, then that Git directory repository will be created. Yeah. So first you have to do the checkout, stage fixes, and then do the commit. How we are going to configure that in Git, and there is a few things you have to do that after creating the repository, and that you have to must remember reason why this will be help it out for identify who is doing what and who did that and what, and so on and so forth. So first thing first, you have to understand Git provide the Git config tools which allow you to set a configurations variables. Git store all global configurations in .git config files, which is located in your home directory. So we have a three levels, like in system level configurations, user level configurations, and repository level configurations. So let's talk about the system level configuration. So if you'll do the git config hyphen hyphen system, it will be like in system level configurations, and it will be stored into that in etc git config, or if you are using in Linux, or if you are using C Windows, then it will be there in C program files git and etc and git config. However, if you are using that in user level configuration, so if you perform git config hyphen hyphen global, then it will be stored into that in root directory, and then git config, or in C user name of the user and git config. In repository level configurations, it will be stored into that in git config, stored into .git file, and there is a config folder is there in each repository. So this will be there for repository level. Git config, like in configure Git, so we had to do that in listing a Git setting. So Git config hyphen hyphen global hyphen hyphen list. It will be display all current configurations. Setting username. So Git config hyphen hyphen global user dot name, and that in double inverted comma, just you have to pass your username or yeah. Setting email ID. So git config hyphen hyphen global space user dot email, and provide your email address. Coloring highlighted git space config hyphen hyphen global color dot ui auto. So it will be come into different colors. Setting default editors, you can set that default editor as well. Git config hyphen hyphen global code dot editor, we can use the notepad or whatever you want. Autocorrect, so if you want to use the autocorrect features, you have to use the git config hyphen hyphen global help autocorrect one. We can do that in reset git config hyphen hyphen global unset, and that's all. After that, we have a Git lifecycle starting from Git repository and cloning the operations, update operations, and push operations. It will be fixes to again to the repository. So this is all about for Git lifecycle. After that, we have a working local with a Git. So create a local repository, adding a files, committing changes, viewing history, viewing a different working copy, staging and repository, deleting and file cleaning the working copy, and how you are going to ignore files with a .git ignore. So you should put that in create the git ignore file and put that in, let's say, a star dot class file. You don't want to check in, it will be ignored. It will not allow to check in that file. Yeah. So working locally, what we have to do, initialize a new repository. So we can do that in git init, check a status of a repository, git a status command, it will print it out, git add for adding the new file. To add all the file into git add hyphen a, git add all update files, git add hyphen u. Committing changes, git commit, you can perform additional command minus m, and we can put that in a comment message. You can see that in check log files, git log, or online, or git modify files, git add hyphen u. Viewing that in difference, we can choose that in git diff, and sss1 kernel sss2, like, and git difference a head level also, you can see that in difference, or git other command as well. Working locally with a git, undoing that in changes into that in a file, git checkout and name of the file. Undoing all changes, git reset, hard or like in soft, we can do that. Cleaning unwanted files, so git clean hyphen n. Yeah, git clean clean hyphen f and name of the file, git clean hyphen f. Ignoring file with a git ignore, so configure that in .git ignore file. Create a .git ignore file and add into that into logs. Yeah. Working remotely, so if you are want to work remotely, you have to perform the clone a repository, listening remote repository, fetching changes from the remote, merging the changes, pulling from that remote, pushing the changes remotely, and working with the tags. Yeah. So apart from that, you have to do that working with remotely, especially some of the environment, like in if your organizations is not allowing, then proxy setup is required. Then this will be allowed to, like, connect that in your repository into that in your environment. And git config hyphen global proxy, http or https proxy, you have to edit. Cloning a remote repository, you have to perform git clone, git url, git clone, yeah, and git url. Basic repository aesthetics, we can see that in git log online and graph, and a short log and short log sns summary, something like that. And git repository provide a graph options as well. To see the latest change, we can see that in git show and head. And working remotely with the git, to see that in remote locations, we had to see that in git remote or git remote hyphen version. Git protocol supported by https, git, or ssh, or file. Yeah. So there is a operations we can do that in, if you are using that in http or https 80.443, and then you have to use that in github or bitbucket url. Yeah. Read write password for authentications, firewall friendly. Git, if you are using that, then you have to perform that in port 9418, and you can use it similarly for, like, in but in Git is only support http s and ss git. Yeah. So ssh, yeah. So with help of that, we can do that in but if you are using the github, then you can use that in a git and file command as well. Fetching from that in remote, so git remote add origin, git push hyphen u, and origin master. Fetching from remote repository, git fetch, and git fetch origin. Yeah. To check the status of remote branches, you have to go git log origin and master. Combine branches into the current local branch, git merge origin and master, that will be merge it out. Pulling pushing from to a remote, download a bookmark history and incorporate changes. Git pull origin master, so and so forth. Git branch hyphen hyphen set up a stream to origin or name of the branch or master. Push to remote repository, just we have to perform git push, or like can pass that in like in upstream as well, uh, and so forth. After that, we have a branching and merging strategy. So working with a local branch, stashing changes, merging branches, reversing commits, cherry pick commit, and working with remote branches. Yeah, so these are we are going to talk in more details. So viewing branches and tags. So branch optionally allow a create another lines of a development. Yeah, let's say top line is going into this is the master branch. We can create that in like in any features, or like in release branch, or like in epic branch, or dev, or like in bug fixes branch. Yeah, and again we can merge it in like in going forward to that in a master. Yeah, so we can tag it out as well. So by git tag, git branch minus r, git branch will be used respectively. After that, we have a branching git log hyphen hyphen graph online. We can see that all in details like in graphical way. Yeah, git branch features one. We can create a local branch, just perform the git branch and name of the features to move to the branch git checkout, and to that in one branch to that in another branch. To create a checkout, we can do that in git checkout hyphen b and name of the branch. Then it will be checkout like into that that branch. Again, we can create a branch from that in a particular commit. Git branch fix a name of the branches. Renaming branch, we can rename it. We can delete it branch as well, while git branch minus d options. We can do that in forcefully as well, minus d options. We can undelete the branches, git ref log. Yeah, that all logs will be stored into that, and we can put that in git branch and name of that in git ref log file, whatever is log is there. Git will be keep deleted commits for 30 days. Then only after 31 days we cannot undoing like in that branches. So merging the branch is nothing but like in features branch, you want to merge into the master. So we have to do that in git checkout master to go to the master branch, git merge and name of the branch. Git branch minus d, you can delete it in the branch, and git merge tools. Otherwise, you can use that in git merge tools we have. With help of that, you can utilize it, but you have to configure it. Yeah, conflicts first. Creating, deleting, and remote branch. So you can do that in git push origin and name of the branch, git push origin and name of that in branches, and to give another name of to that it removed. To see that in remote branches, git branch hyphen r. To delete a remote branches, git push origin clone and a remote branch name. Yeah, after that we can create and verifying that in tag. So creating the tag, just you have to perform git tag and version. Yeah, git tag with a message, we can create git tag hyphen a, let's say b1.0 with message. Yeah, git tag with a sign, so we can create the sign as well. To verify the tag, we can do that in git tag hyphen v and name of that in a tag whatever we have created. We can push it, git push and hyphen hyphen tag as well. Stashing changes, that means in Git, the stash operations take your modified track file, stashes changes, and save them on a stack of unfurnished changes that you can replay at any time. What is meaning? So let's say I'm working into that in a any branch like in master. Yeah, on but it's not finished. I want to do that in some other activity. I'll pull it out, check out other branches, but before that I'll make a test for that. So it will be keep it out. On top of that, we can go and do that in other activity. So these are the command we are going to perform. Git test to test the changes. Git test list, we can see the all list of all tests. Git test apply reset, we can do that in soft and hard. Git test pop and git test drop command will be used respectively. So we can do that in git reverse changes as well. Let's say c0, c1, c2, c3, c5 and c4, it's created into that in another and c5 also we created like in reverse. So we can do that in a C2 or C5 in between C3 is there, so C4 code we can merge into that in C2 and respectively as well. Rebasing the changes, so git checkout experiment and rebase master. Yeah, so we can do that in rebase. On top of that, in like whatever you are working on top of that, we'll do that in rebase as well. After that, we have a cherry pick, so we can go and cherry pick out useful when we want to apply the selected commits to the particular branch. Yeah, in this case, merge and rebase is not useful, good for moving up patches. Yeah, git cherry hyphen pick, just we have to use, and that in id of that in changes. Yeah, so this will be allow to work on that in going ahead, but in rebase and merge will be not help it out in into in this command. So this is all about in theoretical lectures. We'll talk about more details, one by one as per the trend required, but not all in details. Yeah, as a developer point of view, initially whatever is required, I'll cover it down in this. Yeah, but these are the commands you have to understand it. If you want to be like in a specific pure developer, work it out. So all these are the command, most of that in not utilized into day-to-day work, but sometime it's on demand basis. It is of course required. Yeah, so you have to understand that all those in high level, and few of them are mandatory, which ones will I'll be covered into that in upcoming sessions. So that's all about, and thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about just a overview what we are going to do that in upcoming sessions. Yeah. So uh, the first sections we have like an Git and Git and Bitbucket overview. So what is the why we are going to use that in Bitbucket and Git. So Bitbucket I'm preferring and going to use that because we have an opportunity to go and do that, create our repository, manage the project, create the team and assign the permissions respectively. And along with that, in good features I like it, where we have opportunity to go and do that, do that in a code review as well, and we'll get that in a review the code and we can check the quality along with that in the kinds of a manual review. However, still that in our tools will be there like in sonar cube, and we'll talk that in upcoming code where that in it will be automatically detect that quality of what we are going to define it. But if you want to do that in a manual code review, so either you have to install that in JRit or review board or any other tools. On top of that is Git, then only you will have opportunity to go and do that uh, reviewing. So these tools of course it will be paid, up to 5 private repository we can create it in free. Yeah, but more than 5 repository it's required, like licensing and different licensing model they have. So you can opt it. I'm going to go through that. In alternate way you can use that in a GitHub or any other repository if you want, like in repository management system. So but personally I like that in Bitbucket compared to others. Yeah, so this is all about overview of a bit. And why Git? Because Git is one of that in of course, as per my understanding, more than 80% people they are using that in Git now. And we'll talk more details into of what we can do and why Git and all, comparing with uh, VCS and version control system and distributed version control system in upcoming sessions. So these are the like Bitbucket we are going to use, and Git in we'll talk about more in details along with Windows and Linux. Yeah, while using that in another tools like in Eclipse as well, how to integrate that in especially for developer point of view. In next we have how we are going to create a Bitbucket account along with a repository. So for that minimum requirement we need like in one valid email address, either your organization's email address or you use that in a Gmail or other any email address. Along with that you have to follow that in a sign up and create that in repository and all. In next we'll do that in how we are going to install the client in Linux environment, and there is a few commands for that. In more details, we'll talk about that in Git commands and how we are going to implement it, especially creating the repository, cloning, doing that in check-in, check-out, at the developer point of view, and rest of that we'll see that in how we are going to do that in clone into the Windows and Linux environment. So this is all about in this lecture. So just a overview, yeah. And thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how to create a Bitbucket account and repository, and talk about bit more into that in what we can do that in while logging into that in dashboard. Yeah. So we need before going ahead, we need a one valid email address. Yeah. Either your organizations, let's say abc at the rate of org.com, or like in your organizations.com, or you can choose that in a Gmail as well. Yeah. You have to just open that in URL like in https clone slash slash bitbucket.org slash accounting slash sign up. Yeah. So I'm going to open the browser, and in this browser I have opened that, like, or you can choose that in https clone forward slash bitbucket.org forward slash product, and you can get that in a build for professionals team, or you can start for the free, or you can choose that Bitbucket enterprise, but it will be chargeable. Yeah, so I'm going to use that in and get us started for the free, and again it will be redirect to that in where that URL we have mentioned it. Create your account, and it's asking, so I'm going to choose that in AWS. Yeah, so AWS DevOps by Kumar. Yeah, click on the continue and sign up your with your Atlassian account. uh, Done. Click on the continue. Yeah, so account creations is done. In between you'll get that in one verifications code, and you can go and verify that. So I have already did that by my mobile. I'll go and choose that in unique username. So let's say I choose that in same, but I'll remove that in Gmail, and click on the continue. All done. So if you want, you can fill this form, or there is options is there skip, but if you're using for organizations, better to use that fill this as recommended. Click on the skip, and all done. We created that in Bitbucket account, and we are landed in that uh, Bitbucket home page. So step one is done. Step two, I'm going to talk about what are the other things we can do into that in once you'll create that in a account. So for there is a few symbol is there. These symbols like with help of that we can search it, but at the moment nothing is there, so we cannot search anything. Plus symbol indicate that we have opportunity to create a repository, theme, project, and so if you want to create the repository, that repository will be have a single source code. Let's say you want to develop that in a payment service. Yeah, so you can create the one repository, and we can put that in a payment service all code except that binary. I'll not suggest personally to put that in a binary code into that in that repository. Better to maintain that in Nexus or any artifacts repository. Yeah, we can create the team as well. So like an asset, group of people that working for like in respective, let's say like in development, QA, or like project specific team, and then we can assign that team to that in access to the repository. Moreover, you can more organize into that in with help of a project. So you can create the project, let's say that in a web development project. In that web development project, there is a multiple repository will be there. Yeah, so we'll see one by one in going forward. The in this there is a target for in these ones. Just click on that, Bitbucket, you know, uh, Bitbucket icon, and in down left corner you will be able to see that in one profile here. So with help of that you can able to do the logout, you can create the Bitbucket lab, you can integrations and Bitbucket settings, view profile, and so on and so forth. Yeah, if you want to delete that in anything, you have to go to that in Bitbucket setting, and you'll have opportunity to come and delete that in your account. So once account is created, we'll have opportunity to come and delete that in account. Yeah. So I'm not going to do that in a separate video for deleting the account. In this video only, you have to click on that in delete account. It will be asked that why you want to and feedback and so on and so forth. Just click on the confirm. Your account will be deleted from that in Bitbucket. Apart from that, you can create that in email alias, notifications, plan details, users and plan, and so on and so forth. Other things also you can manage that, like you can add that in a users to group, auth, app password, access control, and so on and so forth. More or less you can generate that in SSH key, two-step verifications, connect account sessions, and so on and so forth. And you will be have some other activity as well. And if you click on the team, it will ask for create the team. Just you have to click on that in plus, and you'll be able to do that in a creating that in a team. Yeah, and it will ask that the name of the team, and who that the persons who has already subscribed that in Bitbucket, we can add that in that persons to that in a team. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, just try it, because we need a multiple email address for that, like any users that need to be used and sign up, or you can invite it directly. So our target is to create the repository. So I'm going to do that in repository. There is two options. Click on that in this icon and click on the repository, and then you'll be see that in create repository or import repository. So import repository, if you'll have already, then you can do it. Our target is to go and create the repository. So option one, and second options, you can click on the plus and you will select that in repository. So again it will be redirected to that in same. I'll choose that in I'll say that in my demo repo, my demo repository. This is the private. Yeah, or you can choose that in a public as well, but I'm not going to do that in a private. Include that in readme. Yes. Version control, I'm going to use that in a Git, yeah, or Git. And in advanced setting, you'll be able to provide the more details. So we'll say that in this is my first repo in Git, Bitbucket. Done. Allow private fork and so on and so forth. Let it be and language, it's asking what language you want to see, C++, Go, and so on and so forth. These are the list of all languages there. For I'm just going to choose that in a Java and click on the create repository. So a repository created along with by default one readme file. So in this readme file we can click on that readme and we'll have opportunity to go and edit it. So if you want to edit, just I'm adding that in once in few lines, like in documentations. So I'll put that this symbol, which is comment. This is for this. I'll say that a new repo in bit buc bucket. Sorry, you can put the date, you can put the modified date. Yeah, just for documentations I'm closing here. Click on the commit, and it's asking the commit message and pull request if you want to review and all, but this is not required. Click on the commit, the file committed, and we can click on the approved, and it's approved now. So if, that is approved, and now I'll go to that in a branch. Yeah, so with help of that, at the moment there is only one branch is there, and something is there for merge, nothing is there for merge. Yeah, so similarly you can click on the source, and you will able to see that in readme, and all details about that in a readme, like new repo in Bitbucket, and date and modify data as a heading. Yeah, and similarly we have opportunity to clone it out, or we can add the file, we unwatch it, or we'll share the repository with other team member. Yeah, so for we'll see that in how to clone that in upcoming lectures. Yeah, so this is all about. If more and details, you can click on the setting for particular repository, and again we have opportunity to add to that in a users or group to that in those who are going to access this repository. So you have to just click on the users, and list of all users will be there, or we can just type that in existing users, and we'll provide that in read write, or like in admin access. Yeah, but all we need to see about that in, first we have to create the group. I'll be set personally. Yeah, and that group need to be added to that in that repository instead of individual users, or you can add that in individual users as well. Just type it, what permissions you want, click and just add, and then that users will be added accordingly. So you can create the pipeline as well, pull request, branch, commit, and so everything you can see. Moreover, more and less, if you want to download the source code, just click on the download, and it will be downloaded into that in a, as a zip format. However, if you want to integrate with a webhook, then in Jenkins, then you have to generate the webhook URLs, and we'll see that in once we are going to do that in Jenkins. Yeah, so this is all about for in this lectures. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about how to install Git or Git client in a Linux environment. So commands we have to perform. First of all, if you log in with a non other than sudo users, like in root users, then you have to get a sudo access, or you have to log in with a root users, then you can avoid that in a sudo su command, and even the sudo before yum. So just you have to type that in yum install git space hyphen y, so it will not ask that in approval. Otherwise you can skip that in minus y options, then but it will ask that in approval. And after that we'll do that in git hyphen version, and we will try to uninstall it as well. Yeah, so it's all depend on the latest yeah, Git versions will be installed, or if you require, then you can install that in as per that in your recommendations. So I'm going to use that in default, whatever's there in safe into that in Linux, Red Hat, Rehal 7. So I have already logged into that in Linux. Let me verify that. Yeah, so this is the 10 Linux operating system, and I have login with a EC2-users because this server is there into AWS, so I need to perform that like in sudo, or I have to switch with the root user. So I'm going to switch with a root users sudo su. Now I log in with the root, and then in that case sudo is not required. I can perform directly yum install, and but before install I'll check that is that get install. No, it was not there. So let's go git. So if I'll perform that in minus y, then it will not ask that in approval, otherwise it will ask. Yeah, this is installing git 1.0. Yeah, version is there 1.1.8.3 and so on and so forth. Yeah, so Git has been installed. Now I'll go and verify that in Git hyphen version. Here now I'll be able to see that in Git versions. What I'll do, I'll go and uninstall it. I'll exit from this root user and we'll see is that in there for yeah Git hyphen version. Yeah, same versions is installed because we have did that by root. Again, I'm going to do that in sudo su root and uninstall it. Yeah, yum. Again, asking yes or no. I'll provide that in it. Git, there is no Git now. So this is all about how to install that in a Git and see that in your versions in Linux operating system. Along with that, and how to like in uninstall as well. Yeah. Um, that's all about. Thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to talk about how to clone Bitbucket repository in local PC and work on it. So the things is required what we follow that like in previous lectures. You have to create your Bitbucket account and you have to log in into that any Linux operating system or like in Windows, and same command will be there. In this lectures I'm going to use the Linux along with considering you have created your Bitbucket account what I we did that in previous lecture, and the command you have to perform git a space clone a space URL of that in your repository, and we'll see from where we'll get it once you log into the Bitbucket. So let's go into that in Bitbucket. I have already logged into that in my account and the repository created, if you remember that in like in previous lectures. So we created my demo repo. I'm just clicking on the my demo repo and it's prompting it out. Alternatively, you can click on the clone button and you will get that in URL, and you have a protocol as well, so you can choose that in HTTPS or SSH. So I'm going to choose that in HTTPS. Just click on the copy button here and the copy is done and we just close it. Now what we have to do, we have to go through that in any Linux operating system. So let's say if you are using that in AWS account and you have logged in with EC2 users and you want to work on with these users only instead of root users. So what you have to do, you have to cd into that in opt directory and you have to create your own directory. Yeah. So at the moment nothing is there. I have just logged into that in blank. So what I'll do, I'll go and create that in one directory for it and provide the access to EC2 users. If I'll create with without sudo, it will be not work. So let's try it. Mkdir. So mkdir will be create the new directory. I'll choose that in demo. So it's saying the permissions denied. What we'll do, we'll perform these ones by sudo. This is done and we'll change the permissions now. CHGRP. So it will change the group and we'll show that in EC2 hyphen user and to that in a demo. Okay, so we have to perform that in sudo as well because EC2 user is not root. The group is changed and now I'm going to do that in CHOWN ownership as well as a EC2 user. So type that in ls-ltr. You'll be able to see that in now EC2 user is that in honored and group as well, and that users have a full access. So now I'll move into that in a demo and we'll able to do that in whatever you want now with help of a EC2. So I can create that mkdir abc here. So inside that we'll have a permissions and created. So if folder created, we can perform that in rm minus rf and abcd. So this is done now. What I'm going to do, we have already copied that in git bitbucket repository URL. I'm going to paste it. So this is the URL. We got it like an git clone and URL of like this is that in your account name, and this is that in unique account name what we provided. This is that in your username again whatever is there, and you put that in a repository name is my demo repo.git, and just press that in enter. So it will be asked that in a password, because this is the secure, and you have to provide the password whatever you have uh, uh, provided at the time of user creations. I'm going to enter it here, and all the connection subject done and downloaded everything. So this is done successfully, and we are able to see that in our repository. Yeah, so this repository we created, let's go into that in my demo repository, cd and name of the repository and ls. Yeah, so only one readme file we have, yeah, created. Next thing what I'm going to do, in this lecture was just about to creating how to clone in the repository, but I'll add that in some of the things how to do that in few commands as well, into that in better. We'll divide that in this is all about that in a cloning, in upcoming lectures I'll go through that in a command sections because it will take a long time. So I want to make sure like in a particular topic with a particular video or like in lectures, otherwise it will be conflict. So this is all about for how to clone that in a git repository. The things you have to remember or do it before. First you need to create a bitbucket account and repository, and you have to like in one linux or like in windows system is required your client git client is installed or git bash in windows, and then perform the command third one like in a git space clone and url. That's all about for cloning the repository, and we'll see rest of that in upcoming videos or like in lectures. And thanks for watching. Hello and welcome. In this lecture we are going to talk about git commands. The most commonly used git commands are add a file contents to the index, bisect, find by the binary search, that change that introduce a bug, branch, list, we can do the list, we can create or delete a branches, checkout, check out a branch or a path to the working tree, clone, clone a repository into a new directory, commit, record changes to the repository, in diff, show changes between commit and working tree, etc. Fetch, download objects and wraps from another repository. Grep, print lines matching a pattern. Init, create an anti-git repository or reinitialize an existing one. Log, show commit logs. The next set of commands we have a merge, join two or more development history together. MB, move or rename a file, a directory or a sibling. Pull, fetch from and merge with another repository, a local branch. Push, update remote refs along with associated object. Reverse, forward port local commits to the updated upstream head. Reset a current head to that in a specific state. RM, remove files from a working tree and from index. So shows a various type of a object. Status, show the working tree status. Tag, create a list, delete or verify a tag object signed with a GPG. So this is all about and if you log into that in a, any Linux operating system or like in Windows, just you have to perform that in git hyphen hyphen help, and you'll be able to see that in all command. whatever supported by that in Git. So these are the 10 commands. We have already talked about that, so in previous lectures we have already talked about the Git clone, and we'll see that in one by one in rest of the details. Yeah, so I'm going to do that in a few things, like now how to clone that on repository. Yeah, how to do that in rest of at least few command. Yeah, so let's say I'll do that in, if I'm in outside, and so we have already come like in clone the repository, but I'm going to do that in again. So at the moment it's there, I'm going to remove it. Yeah, so that, so you have to log into that in Bitbucket, yeah, and in Bitbucket you have to identify the repository, and let's say this is our repository, and in this repository you'll be able to see that in all list of a repository. I selected my demo repository and click on the clone and copy this URL, go to that in a command prompt and just paste it where you have a read write access and perform. It's asking password. It's done. So now we understand that in a clone command, how we are going to do that in git clone. Rest of that we'll see what is that in next command, or I can type over here git hyphen hyphen help. So we got that commit. Let's go and add that in some new file. So I'm going to create that in one file, demo.txt, and I'll add that in one line. This is my first file in new repo. Escape clone wq exclamations and save it. I'm using the vi editor. You can use that in nano or as per your convenient. Yeah, and so this file, oh, so after doing this ones you have to move these ones into that in uh, switch into that in my. So what I'll do, I do that in mv and demo to my demo, because we have to move into that in my demo repository after cloning. And now our file created, and readme was there in earlier. So what we do, we'll do that in at the moment. If you'll see that in git status, yeah, so in git status it's saying that in we are there in a master branch, and it's there in untracked file, and use it's guiding, use the git add and the name of the file, then it will be added it out. Nothing added to that in commit and untracked file present using the git command. So I'm going to perform git add and that in name of a file. Yeah, so it's going to be added. Now if I'll say that in git status, so it will be say that in git has been added, and we can do that in git reset ahead. And if you want to unstage, new file has been added into that. So next command I'm going to use that in git commit. Yeah, so we can perform git commit and commit hyphen m. We can pass that in message as well. So this is the commit message. We can say that in a double d new file demo.txt, put in. So this is done, but this configurations is also required. If you remember, we have already talked about that in previous sections. So before doing the commit, because that is required, who is doing the commit and all. So I'll do that in git configure as it is. Yeah, so just you have to copy and paste these ones, nothing more than that. Yeah, you can change that in your username or email address. I'm going to as it is for so it will be display that in that name. So perform the git commit. Yeah, so git commit is done. It's prompting it out next. Use that in git push to push into that in your like in actual repository. So if I'll go to that in over here, so far so forth, there is no more file. If I'll see that in only readme is there. But once you'll perform that in a git push, so far so forth, whatever we are doing, it's there into local repository only or local PC. But with help of a git push, it will be pushed into that in remote. So it's asking again before pushing into that in password. And all done. It's committed, and it's going to be committed, and it's mastered, and mastered is there. So if I perform the git status, nothing is there at the moment, and we can see over here that in additional file has been added. Yeah, demo.txt there into that in our repository. Along with that, if you want to modify anything, so we are there into that in a same repository. We can edit that vi demo.txt. We can go and add the another line. So just press the escape and a, so it will be go to that in end of line or like in insert mode. Press enter and type that, and this is, yeah, this is our second line. And again escape colon wq exclamations enter. This file has been added. So if I'll do that in git status, we'll say that in again same thing. We have to perform like in a git add and demo git commit hyphen m message and a double d I. Second line git push. Yeah. uh, So git status we are then master. Now I'm going to see that so if I'll open this file, we'll able to see that initial commit, and this is the readme, and we choose that in a second ago we are able to see this one. So if we'll go to that in open the file, we are able to send that this is our second line. We added that in here. Similarly in source also we can able to see it's a syncing issue, nothing more than that. So this is the my first repo in Bitbucket we created once the time, and if you want to go and see that in what we have added into that in that file, you have to navigate and come. So if you'll remember 1 minute ago we have added this file, yeah, and in this file we have added this line. So it's at the moment displaying, and it's not approved. So if you want to approve, this will be go and merge. So this, well, once this is the approved, then it will be go and check into that in a you know on we can see that in again. So now your name, we have just added that name of the person who is doing that in activity. Yeah, so 1 minute ago and so forth, all done. If you'll go and see that in a branch, we are there into that in master only, and here also we are there in a on branch master. Yeah, so rest of it git hyphen hyphen help. So what we cover the add, we cover the clone, we commit, and we cover that in push and status. We can put that in a git show. So we are able to see that in whatever activity has been have added and modify and so on and so forth. We can do that in a git log as well. So these are the logs who is doing that in what activity, and you can perform that in one by one command, and we'll see that in now next lectures, all activity. But a high level, these are the commands generally you have to use that in day-to-day activity. Alternatively, you can if you have multiple branch, you can like in a switch from one branch to that in a git ch. Yeah, so it's saying that if you perform the git branch, all list of a branch will be there like in master, but at the moment only one branch is there, so it's displaying. So this is all about a high level of a git command. We'll see that in a, upcoming lectures if required in more details of all commands. More and less I'll cover that in theoretical parts, either overview or like in command sections. So thanks for watching.